This has been another very exciting week in the Church of God, the Living Church of God. I returned home Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, from a trip to Texas. Had the opportunity of visiting with our leaders and with our brethren there in Texas. Had a number of meals together, as well as just fellowshipping before and after services and speaking with our brethren in the Texas area. Mr. Stein and others are doing a wonderful job, all of his team there, and very capable people in that area. We had some meetings this week that were of significance and importance. Mr. Wally Smith and Mr. John Robinson were working feverishly to gear up for 10 issues of the Tomorrow's World magazine, going from 6 to 10, even though we dropped 4 pages. Still, there's a lot more content when you look at the overall picture of things, and the schedule is much tighter. So they're gearing up on that, and we spent about an hour talking about it Thursday and working out some of the details. That will be beginning January the 1st, or the January issue will be our first of 10 issues. We'll also have a double issue in May and June, and November, December. So that's why we have 10 as opposed to 12. Mr. Rod McNair conducted meetings with our U.S. coordinators for the Feast of Tabernacles, kind of a review of how things went. And then he also had another meeting with our international coordinators. And certain themes came out. Some of the things were surprising, some were not. Some actually liked the seating arrangements in some of the areas where we had assigned seating, where people came in, chose their seat, and that's where they stayed for the whole feast. They didn't have to go looking every day for a new seat. Some actually liked that, quite a few, and that kind of surprised us. I don't think that we'll do that in the future, but nevertheless, it was a positive, and some of the things that you don't think of turn out to be positives. But some of the themes that the coordinators mentioned was the teamwork. There was tremendous teamwork on the part of our brethren, and a lot of people working together that don't have that opportunity to do so. More localized, certain churches getting together. A lot of times people transfer all over the world, and yet some of the leading people stayed home and worked together as teams, and it was just really the cooperation between each of the individuals was very rewarding and very heartwarming to hear about. Members were also very creative. Mr. Stafford mentioned that some of the areas in the Caribbean put up tents in their backyards to be able to have temporary dwellings, and the ability to live stream really made the feast very enjoyable for many of the members and gave us contact and be able to give the sermons, live sermons, and not only between individuals who were not able to attend the feast, but also from one congregation or one festival site to another. That gave us a variety of speakers. We had some very fine special music in some of the areas, and some were very appreciative of the work that Mr. Jonathan McNair and his team put together for the pre-recorded special music, and some thought that we need to do that every year. So we certainly like the live music where we're able to have it, but some of our festival sites do not have the talent that we'd hope for special music, so that was a really big hit as well. And the worldwide virtual choir, along with the children's choir, were also big hits for many people, and some are going back and listening to it second, third, fourth time and really enjoying it. We also saw that a lot of members had the opportunity to serve that have not in the past. Sometimes when we have the larger sites, we have the speakers, which are those that are more prominent, and so some of the younger or newer speakers had not had the opportunity, but this gave them the opportunity to either speak or lead songs or have a department that one is over and working with, so it gave greater opportunities to more men. This is especially true in the United States, where our festival sites tend to be much larger than some of the international areas. But they were very appreciative of that. But overall, the members made it work. Our members really pulled together, and thank you to all of you for making this work, for being patient, for being understanding of the circumstances under which we're living, for understanding that we can't always transfer every place we want to. Even if we allowed it by the church, I think that it worked out very well. And thank you to all of you for the tremendous cooperation that we had. And that was given to us by all the coordinators that they talked about that. Some of the opportunities for service were just being hospitable. And the coordinators reported that some individuals who maybe transfer and have a lot more money to do so stayed home and were able to get together with a little bit larger groups, 8 or 10 people going out to eat. And so that was very, very good as well. There was little sickness. This was reported by coordinator after coordinator, that very few anointings. Now, we did have in several areas where people did come down with COVID. We don't know if it was actually during the feast or after. We believe that most cases were out in restaurants and get-togethers. We know one area, there were several that got sick from a get-together after the last great day. But from everything we hear, that most of them are recovering just fine. They had very light to mild symptoms or even no symptoms at all, but they tested positive. There are 1 or 2 people that I have heard are having a little bit more difficult time with it. But when you look at the fact that every year when we go to the feast, people come down with the flu and they come down with other ailments, there was very little of that. Most of our sites had absolutely no COVID cases at all. And the coordinators just mentioned how few anointings there were, and those were for arthritis or sprained knees or bad hip or something along that line, the routine type of anointing rather than the contagious type of anointing. We've had far more sickness at some of our festival sites in the past than we did this year. So although we did have a few cases of COVID, those are getting past, and we're very thankful for that. In general, they reported that we seem to have more of the core values of the feast, coming before God, learning to fear the eternal God always. The purpose for the feast seemed to be far more focused in people's minds. And so even in difficult times, God teaches us lessons that we might not learn any other way. So that was very, very good as well. So this is our report for the week ending October the 30th, 2020. Gerald Weston for the Living Church of God. Have a wonderful Sabbath.